Okay, so hopefully you can all see the screen. Should be a big screen that says Veterans in Sport. If you can't, then let us know. Just as a kind of outline of what we're going to talk about today, we've done this presentation with a couple of other national governing bodies. We've done it for British Cycling, we've done it for wheelchair rugby and others. And what we would describe it as teaching people how to suck eggs, because a lot of people are already doing a lot of this stuff. And at worst, hopefully at the end of this, you can say, oh, we're doing all of this already. That gives me confidence. And we're hoping it raises a few discussions both on the call and then back within the clubs as well. But we're going to look at some of the physical health stuff that you might experience with members of the armed forces, mental health, some attitudes and behavior, and then how a couple of things that you can do to best prepare. Like I said, this is very simple, and some of you will probably think it's very simple. That's a good thing. And hopefully, like I said, it raises some discussion. So, physical health, literally any element of physical health you can prepare for. Gemma and I were talking about this earlier. That probably the perceptions are that you're thinking about amputees and things like that. It can be that, but it can be a whole range of other things, not even conflict related. It could be illness. It could be injuries or physical health issues suffered during the time or after the time. It really could be any. So the way that you would prepare for that is the way that you would prepare for any member of the public wanting to come along to join your club or activity. Some common physical health challenges that we see are often wheelchair users, amputees. We have MS sufferers, a whole range. It's kind of almost a little pointless listing them, to be honest. So when it comes to equipment, we understand that sometimes some very specialist equipment is needed. Sometimes that specialist equipment is incredibly expensive and out of the reaches of a number of individuals or clubs themselves. Now, that's absolutely fine as long as you communicate that. And I think that the most important thing when it comes to adaptations or making things more inclusive to physical challenges is the attitude that you have to it, and whether you can find a solution that is outside of really expensive kit. If it is not outside of expensive kit, then there's certainly help and resources that you can find through Archery GB and also people like us as well to be able to try to find funding for those expensive bits of kit. But mostly it comes down to your attitude to how can we make this work? What can we do to try and find a solution to enable this person to be part of our community? Gem, am I missing?
Yeah, sometimes, you know, it is a massive attitude towards the adaptation. Sometimes, you know, people just look for too big a complicated, expensive fix than a simple workaround short term. You know, at the end of the day, these people are just, if they're coming in for a taster, that's what they're looking for. They're not looking at the full on Olympic package. They are coming into your club, to your spaces, and they're having a go. And you're just going to try and work with what you can to give them a positive experience, because, well, we're all on the call, you know, we've all got a passion about archery, so you all know how beneficial that is overall, mentally, physically, emotionally, and the focus it gives, and you're trying to include that individual in your sport. So, you know, if they need to sit, let them have a seat. You know, try and make sure it's a solid chair with 4 legs that's on a flat surface. It's not a bar stool if they need someone to collect their arrows, for example. There's small little simple wins for a club. If you're outdoors, just the terrain, if they are in a chair, if that's going to sink into the grass. I'm sure Tim can nod in agreement there, and Alan, where it's been, you know, you try and push forward and you end up chewing on the grass. It's great fun. And it is, Yeah, of course it is, Tim. So it is just little things. And if the veteran wants to come and have a physical eyes on the building beforehand, they can make that judgment call as well and work with you. And that's a very important thing, is those lines of communication.
And is Steve, speak up if you're there. If you are there. Have you got anything that you'd like to share about, because you've kind of been a participant, you've been through our coaching program now to be able to give back to the sport. Is there anything on physical health challenges or adaptations that you'd like to add?
Very often it's just joined up thinking. Things like, how do you get somebody from the car park to the shooting line? Have you got toilets that they can use? That sort of stuff. Basic, simple stuff like that, which makes their day home much easier. And if you can answer those questions to somebody when they pitch up and say, can I come on this course? It then reassures them, and you get a happy person joining, and the whole day goes off really well. But it's simple little stuff like that, like disabled parking is another simple one. Where you get into a car park and you can't get your chair out of the car. And that would embarrass somebody, and then they may not continue with the session. But simple little thinking like that.
Yeah, and we cover a lot of that. Thanks, Stephen, on preparation and communication, how important it is. And you're bang on in the sense that it could either embarrass someone and they turn around and they leave, or they don't even want to ask it in the first place, and then they don't bother coming. So kind of we'll talk a little about communication, the details that you can give to reassure people in advance. So yeah, that's physical health. Moving on to mental health, same story. Literally any that could walk in off the street, any general member of public. It's a whole range. It's not something that's specific to veterans. You could have any member of the public with a whole host of mental health challenges. There are probably more pockets of things like PTSD, anxiety, some sensitivities to noise or light or people or spaces. However, prepare for those is the way that you would prepare for the vast majority of any mental health challenges that you might come across within your club or just in general life. And I think that the way that you can prepare for those sorts of things is to be friendly, to speak, to learn, to listen, to watch, to adapt. I mean, the only way that you're going to be able to know this sort of stuff is by getting to know the people that are attending. Someone just turns up and you haven't spoken a word to them, and then they have an outburst of some sort, and you think, oh, that's not on. That's like, what's going on there? Or that's a little bit out of sorts. Then that will be a hard challenge to overcome. But if you speak to the person, you learn about them and you become friendly with them, then you know about that and you can learn their triggers and all that sort of stuff. So it's another one. It's exactly the same, where it's not one size fits all, and it's not something that's really specific to the armed forces community. It's just about being an open and a friendly person who's willing to learn and watch and adapt. Gemma?
Yeah, you know, a lot of time, it is a matter of that communication piece. Nobody here is a psychic, so you're not going to know anyone's particulars if they don't communicate it. There is no wrong question. With regards to mental health, this also falls down into the realms of neurodiverse group as well. The military do have quite a high proportion of employment within the neurodiverse community. And if we don't have it before, we most certainly have it when we leave OCD at the bare minimum. It is knowing that individual is responsible for their treatment. They are responsible for themselves, and they're responsible for their own triggers and how they react to those triggers as well. It is not the club's responsibility or the coach's responsibility, and it's unfair to expect clubs and coaches as individuals to take the responsibility on of somebody else's triggers. Now that goes across the board, not just with veterans, but with any population that you work with.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. It's worth noting. Gem and I run a vast variety of different sporting events. We are not trained in mental health or physical health, counselling or anything like that. We try to be empathetic, and we try to be active listeners and active watchers, and that gets us through 99% of a lot of the challenges that we have. James, we'll have questions at the end, because I don't want to compromise on content, but we'll definitely get to some questions at the end. Next one, attitudes and behaviours. Now, from the experiences that I've had over the last 2 years, and Gemma probably much longer, and any participants that have probably been to any session, really, you probably see this. Again, it's not specific to the armed forces community. The attitude and behaviour that you get at the start of a session versus the end of the session will be quite vast, especially if it's their first time. That is due to a number of things, but it can be, I don't know, that they're anxious about going to a new place, whether they'll be catered for, whether they'll fit in, whether it'll be overwhelming, all those sorts of things, and that comes out in certain types of behaviour. But then at the end of a session, when those anxieties have been put to rest and they realise that they can be part of it, they fully have a place there, they fit in, and they're catered for, and all that sort of stuff means that they're often a lot lighter. The shoulders are a little bit more relaxed, and they're a fully contributing member of the group. So sometimes that anxiety can bring itself out in different ways. We often at the start of a weekend might get quite a lot of different really tiny complaints about tiny little things that aren't really that relevant, and that's just kind of their way of working that anxiety out, sometimes from the people that have come to our events, I mean. And then at the end of it, it's almost like, come on, you've got to go now. The session's ended, but they're kind of thoroughly enjoying themselves. And the thing that I always say about the veterans that I've met is that when they like something, they love it, and it becomes quite a big part of their personality, and they fall in love with activities quite full on, and that's fantastic, and that's great. And they make great club members, and it's worth noting, because we don't want to create what we're trying to do is break down these barriers, and to people thinking that dealing with a veteran is this really scary thing, when it's absolutely not. They're exactly the same as every single person around. And on that same sense, you set exactly the same boundaries as you do with everyone else. And if someone is presenting with bad behaviour, or if someone is doing things that don't fit in with your session, they're not excused, but just because they're a veteran and they might have this, or they might have gone through this, all that sort of stuff. So it's absolutely important that you set the same boundaries as you would from everyone. I just go back to the last slide and just say, be empathetic and understand that, and get to know your people, and then you won't need to enforce those boundaries as much, because you'd be talking to them throughout, and then you won't get to that stage. Anyway, Gemma.
Sorry, I'm not ignoring you. I was just answering a question.
That's right.
Sorry, that's just a quick reply there to James. Fantastic suggestion there. Yeah, attitudes and behaviour, exactly what Ryan has seen. A few of the others who have attended other events, the anxiety before anything, especially if it's new, they're travelling out of area, they don't know that, if it's an access issue, if it's new people issue, new environment issue, it can be overwhelming very quickly. And I suppose, my husband describes it as going shopping with the wife. He absolutely doesn't want to do it, but he knows it needs to get done. And it's obviously a lot less painful once it is done. It can, that whole, for the vast majority, just going somewhere and doing something is absolutely not a problem. But for a lot of the veteran community, it's knowing the routes, the access, the egress, how many fire exits are in the building, where's the fire exits, what's the car park like, how is it lit, what's the security of it. And it is all things that we do automatically, that it can take a lot of our brain power and energy. So when it does come to finally getting in the building to start something, they're already at a lower level and they are hypervigilant. And it is just that it's okay. And by the end of the session, so when a veteran falls in love with the sport, they love the sport and it does become them. And that's why they latch on to something so very quickly.
Steve, have you got anything that you'd like to share as either a veteran or a coach of the sport?
Yeah, well, pretty much what you said is treat them exactly as you would treat anybody else. And as you say, don't give them a walk or a pass, because they will use and abuse that. A big one I've had issues with is language. Now, in the military, there's a certain way of speaking that is not really acceptable, say on an archery shooting line where you might have young children, and if you jump on it, service people tend to be good at taking orders in that sort of way. So if you point out that that is unacceptable, they will tend to work with that. Don't be frightened to do that just because you think, oh, he's damaged and we can't, you know, we'll tolerate him, because that just gets into a whole worse situation.
Yeah, bang on. And that's probably something that happened a lot. Some of our events in the early days, but now when people keep coming back, it's not a thing. And then also another thing to add on to what you said, Steve, is then if you are like that and you set those boundaries early, any new people that come in, it's probably going to be the group that then remind them of those, and then it won't be your job to do it because the group can manage themselves. Okay, sorry.
They'll definitely, once they know the rules, they'll police the rules.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I've missed a slide. Oh no. Oh, I put the any question slide at the wrong bit. So, and how then do we prepare for this mythical beast that is a veteran that needs lots of extra special love and attention? I'm joking, obviously. Like was mentioned before, providing the details is really important. So I don't know if you're doing an email to a potential new starter, or if there's information on your website or your social media pages or wherever it is, or you're communicating with someone one-on-one, providing the details of what is available and what isn't available at the location, or the timings and all that sort of stuff can really help. So like Steve mentioned before, car parking, are there disabled bays, is it gravel, are there ramps, are there accessible toilets, all those sorts of things that certainly people who've got physical health challenges would find really, really important. And those details can really bring their anxiety levels down, and then they're more likely to come along and then also stay along as well. So finding those details that would be important, and almost like giving too much info so they can choose whether to read it or not. Same thing with communication. I don't know if the sessions change location, or it might be a little bit later, or it might be cut a little bit short, or you might be sharing a hall with someone else. Do you know what I mean? That there could be, I don't know, on the other side of the hall, there could be basketball going on or something like that. That's quite an important point, because like we go back to like some noise sensitivities and things like that. Just that over communication, we call it on our events, kind of telling them stuff regularly, to make sure that there's no surprises basically, and you don't have to make these huge adjustments. Stuff that maybe doesn't come across in your like normal daily thinking, but it's important to take yourself out of your mind and think about what might be important to other people. Setting boundaries, we've spoken about that already. Be really clear, like Steve said, once you set them, that's not a problem. But if you don't set them and then you don't address them, then you might have a problem later down the line. And the last thing you want is, as an example to use Steve's, if someone's bad language might affect a fellow member and the fellow member doesn't like it anymore and leaves, that's the last thing you want to do. So setting those boundaries early basically avoids those challenges down the line. And then before I hand over to Jem to add anything, and then Steve as well. They are people. They are regular people that are probably going through a lot of the same challenges as most, and treating them like people, I think, is probably the most important takeaway that we want from this. And being the adaptive, open to learning, empathetic people that I'm sure you all are, because you're on this call in the first place. And that's probably the most important point. Gemma?
No, I think everything's absolutely been covered. I can't think of anything else. It's already been
you got
said,
anything
Steve?
for me? Nothing from you, Steve? Probably specifically in preparation.
No, not if you, when you run a have a go day or a beginner's course or whatever, it's literally just doing it the same. The only thing is if you can try, we always run our beginner's course very light touch, but very often with a veteran, they want to know what's happening, they want to know what's going on. So if you can sort of tag somebody with them that understands everything that's going on, that can answer complicated questions, and that's because they will start like, what's this, what's that, how does this work, what does this go, how do I do this? Particularly when you think about an archery range, which is a scenario, they think range, and it's something that they're very happy and very used to, but not in the way that an archery range is run, which can sometimes give them a bit of a, oh my God, what's going on? So if you can, we all have instructors that are really good at communicating into the detail, and that's the sort of person that if you were doing if I was organising a beginner's course, that's the person I would look at to help the veteran, if you see what I mean. Yeah. And if you're a fellow veteran, then that again, if you can tag those two together, that just sort of is like the dream ticket if you're going to do that.
Yeah, and kind of point that's kind of been covered by both Alan and Pete in the chat. So having a point of contact from the initial comms to meeting is really important. And then, like exactly like you just said there, Steve, if that is a person who's from the armed forces community, then that can be they can act as a wonderful facilitator for new joiners. What we're going to do now, guys, is we are going to try to answer some of the questions that were sent in prior to this evening's call, and then if you have any others that you'd like to ask whilst we're answering those, hopefully pop them in the chat and we'll do our best to get around to them. So first of all, I'm going to hand over to Gemma, if that's okay, who got sent in. We got sent in a few questions. So Gem, do you want to go through those first three questions and I'll pick out the other ones?
Yeah, so I'll go through the second and third first, and then I'll do the first question and I'll pop all the links into the chat. It was very Scottish Archery GB based, Scottish Art. So that's what the links are, pretty pertinent to Scotland. Now, if anybody was wanting, there are links that can be transcribed to England and Wales and Northern Ireland if that's needed. But if there's any England or Wales specific that you're after, please let me know. And it's the same for language. If you needed any ones in Welsh in particular, let me know and I can get those for you. So the second question we had was, what support is available to draft and implement a risk management plan for people where interpersonal relationships may be out of the usual spectrum or behaviours? So an answer to this one is this is an individual case-by-case basis. What's used as risk management for those with mental health or other cognitive impairments and neurodiverse impairments. And I would recommend reaching out to Scottish Disability Sport and utilise their resources. They have got quite an in-depth support system to help with these risk assessments if you need them. For Wales, it's Disability Sport Wales, Disability Sport Northern Ireland, and it's Sport for All for England. The second question I had there, well, the third question that I'm answering is if someone has not been getting the professional help that they need to manage their mental health, and as a consequence they're excluded from attendance, how can they recover that if they start to re-engage with their professional support team? So for this, if an individual has been engaging with a professional support and has a good relationship with a support worker and a club, and a fair action plan could be discussed, outlining a gradual return to an environment. This could be case by case, and it may look completely different to each person. It could be just popping into a club at a quieter time and then gradually building on that, to actually, you know, having a go on a lane and shooting a few arrows, and to be around people at an agreed pace. Just be aware that, you know, this integration and recovery isn't a linear process. It's not even a roller coaster, because it goes off in its own tangent, and you can restart at any point from, you know, at any time. Good communication between the individual, the club, the coach, and honest awareness of triggers and limits should be fostered. It's also important to remind the individual that they are responsible for themselves and not the clubs or coaches. And what I've put in as well, which I think is, you know, a lot of veterans on this call may attest to as well, is that embrace the post-traumatic growth. So focus on the recovery and what can be achieved, and how brilliant archery is for that recovery process. And then for the first question, it was asking with regards to what resources are available. So I'll just pop them in the chat. So we've got Help for Heroes at the top there. So if any, you know, if you have club members that need support, they do not need to be just injured in service in Afghan Iraq. That is gone. We are open doors. We see everyone. Just click on the link, get ask for help. Veterans Scotland, combat stress, Forces Employment Charity, in particular Nova Scotland is in the link there, but you can trace that link back to just Forces Employment Charity, which actually do PTSD support as well. There's good resources on there. NHS Inform Scotland, there's also NHS England, NHS Wales. Mind, they're fabulous. They've got a really good resources on there, and they are available in Welsh and other languages. Men's Shed, they're also in England and Wales and Scotland. Men's Matter Scotland. Brothers in Arms Scotland, now that is a civilian support group, that is not military of any kind. K-Star is for females with PTSD and other mental health, especially on the trauma side, just in case you have female veterans that come through that may need that, or non-veterans, female veterans, you know, they're for everyone, that one. And PTSD UK as well. In England, you do have Op Courage. That's not available in Wales or Scotland. And these are all really good resources. That are just, they have fabulous guides there, and there isn't a wrong question with these.
And we'll send out a lot of this on email afterwards, I hope. So just to go through a couple of quick shorter ones from my inbox. Who gives veterans their archery training? Is this training at the same level and duration as archery GB beginners courses? People in the armed forces are getting trained by archery GB coaches the same way as people go through beginners courses and stuff like that. So it's no different to a member of the public. And then I did get one, but if he's on the call, hopefully I got asked, how do we get involved with Help for Heroes in a coaching capacity within archery? That was from a chap called Neil. I don't know if Neil, you're a veteran yourself, or if you just want to give back, but I'll email you back and then we can have a discussion about that. Just from the chat very quickly, Some fantastic questions, by the way. Mark, what are Army Sports, specifically Army, RAF and Navy archery associations doing to point existing archers into AGB clubs when they leave the forces? Great question. I don't know the answer. I don't think it's a lot, but the good news is, I can share my screen in a second, is that we at Help for Heroes have every kind of quarter have a target sport or a group of target sports. From February probably until late April, one of those target sports will be archery, and I will be sending out a short link to at the end of this call for clubs to sign up to that. And all that is for a club to say, we are open and we would welcome people to come along to a taster, a have a go session, a regular session, all that sort of stuff. You say that to us, we then promote that session to our whole cohort on our social media, email, on our booking platform, and hopefully just drive loads of new participants towards your clubs. So whilst I don't know what those associations are doing, I know that Help for Heroes will be really kind of pushing and focusing on archery, definitely over the next 3 months from a club's perspective, but then also moving forward to an events perspective. And I'll share that form shortly so you can see that. Mark, are there any approved Help for Heroes sport or archery logos we can use for our website, Facebook? Fantastic question. And that kind of kite mark is something that we're working on as we speak to make sure that we can have that kind of veteran friendly kite mark to bring down those anxieties for people that might come. So we're working on it. As soon as we've got it, we'll disseminate it through Archery GB. So hopefully you can get that. Oh, there we go. I should have read on. Pete answered some of the question. RAF are doing some stuff to direct people apparently.
And the Army.
And the Army. No,
the Archery Association.
No competitive nature kicking in there, Jem. Army are doing it as well.
Yeah. We'll do it better. It's fine.
Oh, Neil, sorry, go that. You said yes, you're a veteran as well. Okay, fantastic. Email me. I can talk to you about our coaching academy, and then I can also talk to you about some of the events and activities that we have. I'll email you back. Sorry, events and activities you have where we have wonderful people like Steve and Tim attending and also coaching already. So they'd definitely be able to share their experiences with that. And Mick has shared the RAF Benevolent Fund. National welfare support for those who have served in the RAF. Fantastic, thank you very much. Any other questions to add? I don't think I've got any others emailed in. Whilst anyone is thinking of them, I'll type in them. I'm just going to stop sharing and then share a different screen. Give me 2 seconds. So what I'm going to put in the chat shortly, and hopefully will be emailed out afterwards via Archery GB, is this short little form. So this is for clubs, but if you're a club member, please do feel free to pass it on. What we're looking for people to do is register their interest for your club to provide archery for the Armed Forces community. We'll be promoting archery nationally to this community from February to April, and the aim is to create regular archers who are part of community clubs. So we are simply just trying to create more archers. There's no kind of hidden agenda for us. We want everyone that engages with us to be an active part of their community. So this is one of the ways that we're doing that. In this form, simply you have to put your name of your club, your address, your contact, date or time of any session or sessions that you would be willing to open your doors to or offer as a free session or anything like that. The maximum numbers you'd like to allow, the cost per session or per membership after that free session, because we like to give those details to people before they come so they can make an informed decision. And then based on what we've spoken about tonight, any information you believe would be useful for that participant to know, whether that's the equipment you've got available, the location, the accessibility, the facilities, anything like that. Any information that you would think would be helpful, that we can put it onto our booking system, and then we can include it within that, so then people can make a judgment and then get in contact if they want to come. So that I will put that link in the chat now, but it'll also be emailed out, so don't worry if you miss it. Is there any more questions, Jem, in the chat?
No, Charlie asked for contact details. I've given the group mailbox, and if anybody emails into that group mailbox, which is Community TT, just put it to the attention of Ryan or myself and Archery, so that we know what we're looking for in that group mailbox there.
Right, Ryan, can I ask one question or pose a theory for you, if possible, please?
Go on. Yes, please do.
You're promoting archery, have-a-goes and so forth from February through to April. The majority of clubs will be moving outdoors from the 1st of April. Okay. And there's not many clubs that can accommodate have-a-goes and beginners and so forth during the winter season in general. So I don't know whether you'd be better holding that from March going forward.
That's a fantastic suggestion, Mark. Yeah, if that's your club, if that's something that your club can only host from that certain time, then feel free to put those dates within that form, and then we can adjust and say, for example, if absolutely no one signs up to host a session in February, then we'll push our promotion of it to March. So yeah, there's space on that form for people to be able to identify the date or dates. So hopefully we can overcome that. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, no problem.
Alan in the chat, can any veteran get support for costs via Help for Heroes, as this could be a small barrier? Whilst I certainly wouldn't commit to Help for Heroes providing that funding, I definitely can commit to us trying to help you find it. So
Veterans Mobility Fund.
Yeah, we want to become a conduit to, or a facilitator for that sort of stuff as well. So please do get in touch if that's something that you need support with, and we'll do our best to point you in the right direction. James.
Yeah, hi everyone. I know a lot of people obviously on this chat at the moment. I suffer with PTSD and anxiety disorder myself, and really struggle, have a lot of triggers. My biggest thing here is at the start of the session, we were talking about people with PTSD attending clubs. We were saying it wasn't the club's obviously responsibility. I fully understand that, to make sure that person behaves. If that person then employed a carer, a friend, or a family member to come along to a session to make sure that person had someone to talk to share their thoughts, maybe have 5 minutes out if the individual knew that person needed 5 minutes out, and acted as a responsible sort of guarantor person, would that then take the responsibility of the club if that person acted as that person's responsible adult, like you would with a child? As a case,
yeah, as Steve touched on it earlier, that having an assigned appropriate care person idea, it gives you that safe space if it is yourself, or it gives that club member a safe space.
It's me. I'll put my hands up. It's me. So I've went to the club and I've gave them a list of obviously what I need from the club. So I need someone I can go and talk to if I need to for 5 minutes, or if someone sees me going off on one, just say, James, have 5 minutes away. Or at a competition, sometimes I'll walk away and just have 10 minutes to myself. But a club I've been involved with recently has suspended my membership due to my PTSD, because obviously there's no one willing to act as a guarantor. But if I can find a friend, a family member, a friend, someone who's got the same interest in me to come along to the session, to then say to me, James, have 5 minutes away, or James, do this, do that, or someone just to sit in and have coffee with, is that acceptable in the bigger picture?
It falls down to the club's own parameters to what they can accommodate. However, I do think that is having someone there to support you would be key. But that would be a conversation not for this forum, and I'd be
Right.
more than happy to talk more to you about it later.
I must say that I've had lots of support from Scottish Archery and Archery GB, and also my area, the Eastern area, and I'm working with one of the Health Heroes psychiatrists at the moment.
Oh,
To get my
fab.
back. My is it peer support work, whatever they call themselves nowadays. I know they've changed their names nowadays, but the same thing. But obviously, want to get back to that club I was shooting at. But obviously, due to my well-being and stuff, I just need to gain that trust again. And
Yeah.
with PTSD and anxiety, a lot of people don't understand it. They go, "Well, what's that?" or "What's this?"
And maybe that was the case with your club. They didn't understand. But, you know, things like this are there to break those barriers down. Again,
Yes.
this is a conversation for another forum, not this public one. And I'd love to talk to you further about it, if that's okay.
Well, hopefully the help from yourself and Scottish Archery, Archery GB, and a bit of input, like you say, about the risk assessment plan. That was one of my questions that I put towards you. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what I was asked to do, and we provided that platform. But the club have said it's not acceptable. So, like you said, Scottish Disability Sport are the main point of contact for the risk management plan now.
Yeah. If you're happy with that answer, I'm going to move on to the next question because we're just short on time.
Well, could I just say to James, your club should have a welfare officer. It might be a good idea if you get a bit of rapport with them and discuss the issues with that individual. They may be able to, you know, give the appropriate advice and potentially,
Sorry, Teddy, for butting in there. I've been told via email, do not contact the club whatsoever. Unsolicited, do not contact them.
I think it sounds like not a simple
no, it's not
situation. So, like Jem said, well, we can pick it up and support you the best we can. But it sounds like appropriate steps are being taken, James. And like Gemma said, this is what this kind of call is for. So, just very quickly, because we're very close to time. We have Mark. Is your hand up, or is that from earlier?
From earlier, sorry.
That's all right. The process of putting your hand down and then finding the mute button is always excruciating, isn't it? Elizabeth, your hand is up. Do you have a question?
It wasn't so much a question, just a little bit of advice. If you have a look online, it's for any disability, not just specifically towards veterans, but the Fletcher's Trust does offer grants for people with equipment needs. So that might be a useful avenue for you.
Some people are popping lots of ones in the chat. To be fair, we've got loads.
John's put that in the chat.
Yeah, Royal Company of Fletchers.
That's all right. It's not working. And the other one, we have an archer who is dealing with dementia, and what we found the best way to deal with him, again, could be similar with other people with mental health, is that his wife has joined the club and she acts as a spotter for him, and that kind of family influence can be helpful as well. But that's
hugely
an aside. So anyway, but thank you for all the.
Yeah, thanks, Liv. You're absolutely bang on, because every event we run, we strongly encourage family and friends to come along with them, because that basically improves their chances of long-term participation as well. So absolutely right. Mr. Seeley, you have a question?
Yeah, hello. It's just my input, really. Hi, I'm Tim, ex-army, beneficiary of Help the Heroes, also Help the Heroes quiz, sports series quiz master, and I'm a member of the Wife Forest Company of Archers. Just to go on from the anxiety bit and everything else, with joining the club, it's your responsibility. Like I wrecked the actual venue out the day before. I sat in my car for about 30 minutes before I actually got the courage to go inside the actual hall. But once you're inside there, I mean, the club's fantastic. I cannot fault them for everything they've given me. So that's my little sort of thing that hangs. But PTSD and any sort of mental health issue, it comes down to that person. They are responsible for those issues that they have, the triggers and everything else, and how they work towards putting themselves in that exposure. We use a graded exposure, so you get into a certain area gradually, But that's your responsibility as a person with that health to get that help beforehand, before just diving into a situation. Carers, friends, family coming along to help you, I think is a fantastic idea. It always happens on the sports series and anything else like Invictus. You always got your carer or your family or friend there, which gives you that mental health help, and any physical needs as well that are needed. That's just my input. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, all really valid and spot on, and we see it regularly, and you guys see it and experience it as well. So thank you for that, guys. That is absolutely bang on, on the money. Any questions that we haven't answered, we will get around to, whether that's individually or via a Q&A platform. Just a few very, very quick thank yous. Thank you to Stuart and Gail at Archery GB working with us on this. It's been really great, and to get 60 people on a call is absolutely phenomenal. So as custodians of archery, I think it's in good hands if this many people are willing to come to an activity to make sure that their sessions are more welcoming. So that's fantastic. Shout out to Steve for coming on. I had the pleasure of interacting with Steve at a couple of events. He's a great guy, and I really appreciate you coming on, Steve, and sharing your experiences. And finally to Gemma for helping put together the event, and then also thank you to all you guys for coming along. If you have any questions that you haven't had answered, please email the email in the chat, or put your questions in the chat. We'll get that transcript. We've recorded this session that will be sent out via Archery GB. If you want to share it with any of your other club members or anything like that, then please do. The more people see this, the better. And hopefully we can find more club members for you, whether they're veterans or not, via our core delivery, which we'll also send out that information for as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope to see you all soon, whether it's at your sessions or whatever it is. But yeah, thanks very much. And that's all from us. So enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.